Hello, 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 my friends.
Welcome, everybody. How's it going?
Come on in. Hey. All right, come on in, my friends. Let us know where in the world are you tuning in from. I love this part of our workshops where we get to see the global reach of this community. Let's hear it. Where are you? Atlanta, North Carolina, North Hollywood, Denver, Napa, Toronto, uh, Riverside, Czech Republic, Los Angeles. Nice. Norway, Chicago. Nice. Virginia, West Virginia, Scottsdale. Cool. I love it. You guys, we are a global community and it is so fun to see people from all over on here. Maryland. And you guys, I know a lot of you work virtually together, and sometimes it's fun to see people who are your neighbors that you can end up hanging out with and working with. All right, we have been trying to do one of these workshops about once a month when we can. They are really fun. And today we have Stefan Lit in the house. I can't wait to bring you up and chat with you. I see you here, Stefan. Hey.
Hello, hello,
Hey.
hello.
We're going to do some housekeeping, setting the stage, have John do little chit chats on 3 tips around songwriting. Then we're going to bring up Stefan and we're going to dive in to your story and all the amazing things that you're up to and working on. Who is like the first time, maybe the first time or the second time you've joined us for one of these workshops? Maybe the first time. Anybody? Type of 1 in the chat. Me, Lenka, first time. Cool. Welcome. Any other newbies? Brandon, Christina, Katie, Mia, Doug. Awesome. Welcome, my friends. Tim, fun. All right, so today, let me tell you what we're doing. We're talking about how to write better songs. And we're diving into this because I think as music creators, this is the fundamental part of honoring our craft, honoring why we are music makers in the first place. We keep freshening up our skills, we keep getting better, we keep honing it in, and we keep showing up. And having a good song is really a well-crafted, well-written song are the bones. I mean, that's why we press play again. It's why you land a sync. It's why you feel something when you were listening to something. It's how you feel fully felt expressed in the music that you're making. And so writing a good song is, sometimes overlooked because we're all music creators. We think we've got that down, but it's actually one of the most important pieces. And John and I, as many of you are listening to music all the time, and it's important that that music is high quality, and we want to give some feedback around that today. So we're going to be sharing 3 practical tips for better songwriting taught by John Kleinbell, and we're bringing in Stefan Lit, award-winning producer, songwriter, and musician who is crushing it in the world of music and sync and all things, to share more about his journey and his insights and just get a feel for your world, which we're so excited to dive into. And for those of you who are new, welcome. And if you don't know about us, let me give you a second. Let me tell you who we are. I am Sonnet Simmons. I am a songwriter, I am a singer, I am an artist, and I am co-owner of 2Indie. I've had my songs licensed in ads like GoDaddy, Starbucks, Nike, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Nevia, Volkswagen, and more. And I help pitch songs for ads and trailers at Out of Office Music, and I wear a lot of hats. I used to run a music licensing company that just licensed and represented independent artists, and I traveled the world, or the US anyway, meeting music supervisors, building relationships, pitching our roster of artists, and fulfilling briefs. And so that really gave me the place to cut my teeth on what is being asked for, how do you navigate the world of being the music maker and the person who's pitching and interfacing with the decision makers on the sync side. John Kleinbell in the house here is a songwriter, producer, singer, artist, and co-owner of 2Indie with me. He also ran a music licensing company helping indie artists get placements, and has taught 6-figure songwriting along with teaching a lot in our community of Sync Society. He's had placements in ads like Starbucks and Red Bull and Instagram, and promos and songs like Fox, ESPN, Nick Jr., CBS, HBO, and so many more. So today we are coming together because we feel like it's really important in these workshops to give the power to the independent artist and to remind you guys that you have the power in this music industry. It used to be that independent artists really were at the disadvantage. And now independent artists really get to create, customize, and show up for their career. And in platforms like this, with connecting with people all over the world, with co-writing, with learning from other people, with having this kind of accessibility. And so we're here to help you, encourage you to take your seat at the table, to take ownership of your career, and to help inspire you with tips and ways to do it. So in our work, we are always listening to songs, like I said, and a lot of songs are good, and a lot of the songs don't quite hit the mark. And so I think there's this thought that like, well, I'm writing a song for sync. Like I don't have to give it my all, or I don't have to bring my whole heart to it, or it's not really that meaningful. So let me keep it kind of superficial. And I think that what we're here to share today is the more that you craft your songwriting, the better song you create. And the better song you create, the better song you have for sync. Yes, there are certain things to consider that make it more appealing for sync, but at the end of the day, a really good song is undeniable. And that's the piece that gets people to press play again, that gets it to forward it to the next people, that gets it to say, hey, have you heard this song yet? So that is why we are here today. And that is why we want to dive into some really good, juicy pieces of information here. So, who is ready? Who is excited? Who is feeling like this is what they needed in their life today on Thursday in 2024? Feeling it. First time workshop. Robin, not first time hanging out with us, though. Cool. Nice to see you. All right, all right. I love the energy in here. It's already just like bombastic, exciting. Let's go. John, I'm going to give you the stage here. Take it away. Give us some juicy details, songwriting.
Juicy details. What's up, everybody? Hey, I'm very excited about this. This is a very important thing, like Sonnet was talking about. We listen to so many songs every single month, and one of the things that is definitely either it's part of what makes something a slam dunk, or it's really something that it's not quite there, is with the songwriting. So we got to make sure, as much as we can, as songwriters, to deliver songs that, first off, are good songs, because the level of competition is very high. As well, we have to keep, if we want to land more syncs, we have to write with sync in mind. So that's a big part of what today is about as well, is not only writing better songs, but also writing songs that can work to picture. So I'm going to give you three super practical tips that anybody here can apply. If you're new to sync, especially, these are going to be ones that are going to be super eye-opening potentially for you, because you may not have thought about these things before in really a detailed way, and definitely not when you're filtering all of your creative ideas that are coming when you're in a session. It can be a little, I got a sandbox, I got to play in these rules and things like that. I would suggest everybody who has never really thought about potentially having some rules around, some kind of guardrails around their songwriting, for a bit. It could be a really good practice. So if these things that I'm talking about today are kind of new concepts to you, I would really suggest diving in, giving it a shot. When I started doing these types of things with my songs just became better. It didn't matter if I was like targeting sync or not. My songs just became a lot better. So that's another thing that's great about when you're writing with sync in mind. They're the types of things that tend to make better songs anyways. So just keep that in mind. But these are some tips that are targeted around, if you want to license your music, if you want to have more success, you want to get your stuff signed to agencies. Again, Son and I have a lot, we have so much experience in this, in terms of the songwriting and how this applies to what either makes or breaks things, in terms of like getting on one of our samplers, landing placements, those types of things. So I'm going to dive in here. I'm going to try, I haven't done this before. I'm going to try sharing a presentation here. It's nothing too fancy, but I just thought it might be
Well,
nice to have a little
let me
visual to
make you
go
the
along
host.
with it. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. All right. Yeah, I guess I gotta be the host in order to do this. All right, let's try sharing this here. And boom, I tried doing this presentation. Present full screen. Let's see. Can everybody see that?
Nice.
All right, here we go. Yeah, we're here to write better songs with sync in mind. So, again, I already laid the table. Well, Sonnet put the table, put all like the silverware and the plates and all that stuff out there. So I think everybody understands what we're here to do today. But I want to give you three highly practical tips, and I want to make sure to also be able to read the chat while this is going on. Yeah, because it's nice to be able to interact with you all. So I'm just gonna get this all set up, and then we're gonna dive in here. So so yeah, the first thing I want to talk about, and this is a really important thing, is you want to, let's see if this works. There we go. Hey, use universal themes. Can everybody see that? Can we see my nice graphic that I generated with AI? Use universal themes. This means, does anybody want to take a guess as to what universal themes means? What does universal themes mean? Drop it in the chat.
I was going to say things people can relate to. Sorry, I just did that. Everything,
No, you're good. You're good. Just drop it in the chat though. Otherwise, we might have like three or four people unmuting and then talking over each other. But yeah, having things that many people relate to. Yes, this is a huge one because when we're songwriting is such a personal thing, we can get very wrapped up in the minutia of our own personal experience and really kind of go sideways into different corners of emotions and different corners of stories. A part of what makes a good story, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but one of the things we got to be careful about is making sure that something is something that everybody can relate to. It really helps when you're talking about big themes that commonly get used in film and TV and ads. You've got themes like love, because everybody feels that at some point, right? Sadness when you lose something or somebody important, hope, wanting things to get better, fear, being scared of something, or happiness, those like joyful moments. These are the things that we can all relate to because here's the thing: when we write songs for TV shows, movies, or ads, you want to talk about feelings and experiences that everyone knows about. So if you're being too about things, you're being too you get too much into the minutia of it, it can get a little difficult to categorize. Another thing that I see a lot is also mixing too many different themes together. It's using universal themes, but also not picking like four of them and jamming them all into the same song. Does that make sense? The reason why this is really important is because your song, if they're looking for a sad song, for example, they want a sad song for a cue or something like that. Hang on a second, I just gotta mute somebody. If you're if they're looking for a sad song for a scene, they're really looking to amplify that one emotion of sadness. And if your song is about sadness and about happiness and about redemption and about the hope of tomorrow, then you're going to be part with that song, you're going to be touching on all those different themes, but it's not going to be as powerful as if you just wrote a song about feeling sad, because that's really the moment that they're trying to amplify on the screen at that point. So hopefully that makes sense as well. It's picking themes that everyone relates to, but also not jamming them all into the same one song, which is definitely something that I used to do when I first started out in sync. I was like, oh, if this keyword works or they're looking for this and this, oh, these are all happy keywords. I could just put them all in the same song and make it into like a big keyword salad. We don't want that either. So stay away from keyword salad, stay away from like theme salad where you just put a bunch of themes in there, but definitely use universal themes because they're going to be really helpful to you. It's going to help people to understand clearly what the emotion is that you're trying to put into the music, and it makes it very easy for them when they're looking for a sad song, they're looking for a hopeful song. They know it's a hopeful song. Yeah, no theme salad. All right, so tip number one is done. Let's move on to tip number two. Tip number two is to write like you actually talk. This is something that, I mean, again, the reason I laugh at this is because like I'm so guilty of it myself, especially when I was much younger. As a younger writer, I would write stuff that sounded so poetic, but it's not a sentence I would have ever used in front of another human being. So it's one of those things where Yes, use poetry. Yeah, you can come up with examples of songs that are very esoteric and strange and come at things from a very poetic angle, but the bulk of music that gets placed to film and TV and ads is very conversational. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like be conversational. Use words and sentences that are easy for everybody to understand. A really good test of this, and this is actually a bar that every time I write something now, I'm taking a break at some point and saying, would I actually say this to another person? Would I actually, if somebody else was in the room with me, oftentimes I love co-writing, so I'm always like in the room with somebody, and I would say like, hey, hang on a sec, would you actually say this to me? And then that test alone is oftentimes it's really the barometer that you want to be kind of looking around in terms of your lyric writing. It's very important that your songs be easy to understand, be things that people would actually say to each other. There is a creative way of doing that. We're going to talk about that later, but you got to keep it simple so they can get what you're saying. But that doesn't mean that you might be saying, "Oh, well, my songs are all going to be boring now because I talk every day. Like, what's so exciting about that, right? I have conversations with people every day. Thing is, you can talk about very interesting and complex subject matter without getting crazy with like the poetry of it, without making it something that you sound like you're in a poetry slam or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of music. It just doesn't seem to be the kind of music that lands very much. You know what I mean? So what I'm talking about is just getting to the deep and complex, interesting ideas, but just using everyday language to get there. So that's what I'm saying here. It's very important to write like you actually talk. Um, and there's a way to do it that's fresh and interesting and not boring. We want to make sure that our stuff is boring. So let's go to tip number 3. Again, this is going to be like action packed, super applicable to everybody out there. This is a third thing that I thought when I was writing this, I was thinking like, well, what are the 3 most important things to me as a songwriter in sync? And the third one is to be authentic and fresh. So I've said all this thing about like using universal themes, using language that everybody understands. It's easy. But here's the trick. You have to find a way to put your own unique stamp on it. You have to find a way that not only you being you and it feels like it's coming from you and no one else, but also you have to find a way to say it in a fresh way that hasn't been told 10,000 times before. There's so many heartbreak songs, there's so many love songs, there's so many hope songs, there's so many different types of songs of every single genre, every kind of message that you're hearing out there. There's so many ways to say I love you, but there's the real creativity comes from like, can I find a way to say I love you that hasn't already been said 500 times in the last 3 years? So that's one of the tricks with this is, and I'll tell you why this is important. First off, it's like big brands, networks, they want to align themselves with authentic artists. They want to share more and more. We see it in briefs all the time. We hear it from the supervisors and the ad agencies and the ad execs that we bring in to 2Indie and what we do. They're saying it more and more frequently all the time that they're not just looking for somebody sitting in their bedroom not releasing music. Part of this is like being an artist, putting your stuff out there, but also it's the music itself. If the music sounds like it was written for sync, not a real artist, not a real artist, whatever that means, that's really like a gray that we could talk for an entire hour of what like an actual artist is. But they're looking for something that sounds authentic. And what is something that sounds authentic? It's something that sounds like it's you. It's what is it that makes you unique? And I taught a workshop last week or the week before about object writing. Pat Pattison suggests that this is an amazing practice. I suggest everybody who doesn't know what object writing is to go look it up. Very powerful way to start to dive into your own unique experience of the world and being able to relate that in terms of writing, in terms of coming up with creative ideas. But you got to find ways if you're having a difficult time with like cliches, you're writing stuff that just feels kind of flat and unfresh. You got to find ways to unlock the literal treasure trove that's inside of you of your human experiences, your stories, your unique view of the world, and the way in which you choose to view everything that's out there. So you got to, that's part of like, that's just one thing that you can do to be more authentic in what way you're writing. It's like owning your seat at the table, being you more than anybody else on the planet because you're the only one who can do it. So that's the thing. You got to do that. But then you also sometimes you might not instinctually be writing in a fresh way. And so that's where it's like you can authentically, I've seen people where they're authentically themselves, but they just like show up in the way they're showing up. It's like, well, I've heard that like 50 times over the last, I just know it. I can't tell you the exact song I heard that on, but it just, the feeling that I get is that you could have found a more creative way of saying this. So I think that's the other thing. It's like the people that really crush it in licensing, remember, they're looking for, especially on the ad side of things, titles to songs can be entire ad campaigns. So what's that snappy view of like fresh, something that's fresh and exciting? You could write a song that's like called Fresh and Exciting. It's fresh and exciting, but it's probably not going to land you the target ad, right? So you got to find a way of fresh and exciting that works in terms of modern music most of the time when it comes to ads, especially is they're looking for stuff that really embodies what's a hit right now. And so you got to learn like how does that work? How can I incorporate this into my own work? And then also, especially on the lyrics side, can I inject some freshness in there so that it feels like the campaign is already kind of written itself? If you write songs like that and you're targeting ads, it'll definitely help you out a lot as well. It'll intrigue people. It intrigues people when you want to press play. Sonnet was talking about that. What's that thing that makes you want to press play to begin with? uh, you know, it's a lot of times it's the song title. Can your song title coax something out of somebody in terms of an emotional response that they haven't already seen a lot of times before? Or it's just, is it very clear going back to what we talked about earlier? Is it clear that it has a universal theme? Is it clear that it's a conversational piece of work? If you can do all three of these things, you can make it universal sounding. You can make it have that in terms of the what was I talking about with being conversational and then also having a unique stamp, having a fresh approach. Those three things. If you're doing that, just your song title, and then you actually deliver on it when somebody presses play, then they're going to be impressed. So that's all I have for you all today. I don't want to take up too much time. I can't wait to dig in here with Stefan Lit and talk about like all the cool stuff that he's done. It's been it's going to be an amazing conversation. But I just want to thank everybody for checking this little workshop out. Hopefully, you all got a lot out of it. We're doing a ton of stuff like this in the Sync Society every single month, which is our private club. It's now up to you to apply this in your own songwriting. And feel free to follow up with me if you have any questions about any of this stuff. I love answering questions and love to get to know where you're coming from with all this. So that's all I got. Sonnet, you want to take it back?
Yay. Awesome. I love those tips. Snappy, quick and snappy. If you give me the host ability, then again, I'm going to bring us all up on the stage here for an intimate chat with 75 people. Great. Yeah, awesome insights there. And I also heard your object writing workshop that you did in Sync Society was awesome. And people are, we're talking about it in our workshop that we did today as a group. Okay, did you make me the host? All right. What's up, Stefan? Come on up. I'm going to spotlight you and me. Hi, haven't seen your face in a long time. It's nice to see
Hello.
you. Hey.
Something to unmute. Okay, there we are. Hello, hello. Hi.
Hello, how
Nice
are
to see
you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Yeah, I see your Instagram posts about all the cool things that are happening and the music you're making and lots of fun stuff. I think people probably did a little deep dive on you and researched you because we announced you were coming on today.
Oh, cool.
But let's just start with a little quick, I guess, catch up for anybody who doesn't know, or just give us a little insight on your story on like how you got to where you are, kind of your journey to what doors opened, which doors did you go through to lead you to where you are, and then let's dive into some of your process.
Cool. Wow, that's a big question. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really been a quick, 23-year process
Uh-huh.
of doing music. Um, I mean, I started in high school really playing music in my like a punk band. And
What did you go to again? Or you're from LA, right? Wait,
I'm from the Bay Area originally,
Bay Area, Bay Area. Okay.
but I moved down to LA obviously for college, which is how we met. And yeah, I was in a punk band and we like toured, and I kind of come from the performance side of things. So even after college and during college, I was like playing in bands and touring and just performing. That was kind of the dream at first, just to be on the road and you know hit drums and have fun, I guess. But that kind of turned into not wanting to be on the road about 10-ish years ago. So I was like, how do I make music and not be on the road? So I started learning production. That kind of turned into doing pop songwriting. So I was like kind of writing with a lot of the artists that I was touring with, and just having no idea what I was really doing. Just like, hey, let's make a song. And after a few years, I got a few cuts. Luckily, I have no idea how. I just wrote a ton of songs, not really making any money or knowing what I was doing, producing things, not even really know what not really having any idea what I was doing. And then some landed. I was kind of realizing at the same time as this, the songs would be on the radio, then it would get like a sync, and I'd be like, oh, what's this thing? There's like money coming in from this side. This is crazy. Like this is this is awesome. And I just kept doing pop. And in the last few years, I really started transitioning more into sync just because, you know, the pandemic really no artists were making music and TV was still going. And I also just um look back at like where my money was coming from. And I was like, okay, I got songs on the radio. Okay, I got this over here, but like most of the money was coming in, even with the big artists, was coming through sync. So that was kind of the writing on the wall. I was like, I'm just going to kind of go in further and just make music for sync. And with that comes a lot of different things. Like I kind of started my own artist projects, which was probably the most important thing that I had done, was making music that I really like, that can work for sync. I angle it that way creatively, but I'm making music that is for my artist project.
Hmm.
And that's really been a big part of it.
Yeah. And so with you working, well, one, having an artist project, let's dive into that more a little bit too, just having that angle of expression as an artist, having an outward uh way to show up in the world as an artist, but then having these songs really work well for sync. It all like it goes hand in hand. And it's probably also one of the things that you've seen when you're working with so many different people and then to take everything that you've learned and apply it to your own artist project. When you're collaborating, because I know you collaborate with a ton of different people, what are some of the things a couple of years ago you're like, okay, I'm going to start just like writing these songs. Let's see. Stuff started hitting. Then you start writing, some people you like working with more than other people. So then as you're like getting more understanding of what it is that works and what doesn't, what are some of the things that come to when somebody comes into the room and they're co-writing with you or virtually or otherwise, like you're like, okay, cool, this is working. Like I appreciate the way they're showing up. These are the things that work. Or on the flip side, don't work. I think collaboration being if you're not a strong songwriter, then you have these other strengths that you bring to the table. Like, what are some of those things where you're like, or they send the files in the way that you really like, or they're on time, or, what are some of those things where you're like, yeah, this is a relationship I'm going to continue, or we can't work together again, sort of thing.
Right, right. I mean, all of those things. One, I mean, being a professional and being a good person and being easy to work with is like the most important thing. Like, I don't care how great you are if you're not like at this point in my life, like if you're not a lovely person that I want to hang out with for 4 hours in a day, like it doesn't make sense for me to want to work with you either. Like, um, luckily I have that luxury now. I mean, I didn't used to when I was doing a lot of pop writing, a lot of rap sessions and just all types of stuff. Like I would just do it. But now I want you to be a lovely person and want to make music that you love. And I think that's so important and maybe sometimes overlooked in music. Luckily, I learned that lesson being on the road all the time. Like a lot of people would you know, you wouldn't get a gig unless you were just like a cool dude, like, or a cool person. Like you have to be cool and want to be around somebody. That's so, so important. Um, but in terms of the creative, I'm like really proactive now. Like before, when I was kind of in the process of learning how to make things that really work, it's I think the most important thing that I did that I can say for other people to do is to like study, to like listen to a music that really works. Like go and just what brands are using what. And I focused all my energy on ads because that's where the most money is personally. So I really studied for like I don't know, for days and days, I mean, months, and just like what's working, what has worked, what works to picture, um, what do different brands like, who's representing these brands, you know, what agencies are, just kind of like deep diving on both sides, the creative and the business side, like how to do it right. Um, I think that's a big, big thing is learning how to make music that works really well to picture for ads if you're doing ads specifically. Because if you want to do promos, promos are going to be a very different type of process and different type of I won't say process, it's a different type of soundscape and different types of things that the editors generally look for than ads. In shows, I don't really shoot for that stuff because anything can work for in show. It's just the vibe. Um, and they generally just pay a lot less, so that's not like my focus. Um, yeah,
What would you say is the landscape that's different between ads and promos? If somebody,
sure.
yeah.
Promos generally have a much larger build in the music. And I'll put that as like a, you know, the last chorus or something, or some section that just gets really, really big, like absurdly large with overproduction. Because they almost always look for that. And they're always like, where's the big build? We need the big build at the end. And I learned that the hard way. I made, you know, hundreds of songs that I was like, but this is perfect. And every time they're just like, where's the big build? We need the big build. I was like, okay, I'll just give you too much production at the end. I mean, that's just kind of how it has, that's what they look for. It's almost like trailers. Trailers are very different. Trailers are closer to promos than they are to ads in general. Um, those are just absurdly crazy production as well, generally. I mean, they'll use anything for trailers sometimes. I have a lot of the ad music that I make works for trailers also, and they have no build at all. But that's a specific type of trailer, I think. And um yeah, advertising is a lot more like quick cutting. Like if on the production side, there's lots of drops, there's lots of sections that go up, that come down, that come up, that come down, and you kind of give the editor a lot of different choices. I think it's really important to give them really quickly, like within even 12 bars, like a lot of different, oh, this works for this thing. And they just are, it's like clear to them to they're like, I like this, I can use this. Boom.
Mm. Such good advice. And I love how the delineation between the two or about between all the different section though platforms, ideas, like what you're creating, kind of know, do your research, know what you're shooting for, what they're using, what kind of like builds or not builds, even within 12 bars to have that variation and edit points to start giving them and just like know your business. So if somebody's, you know, people, I know we have lots of co-writers in here who are co-writing together, you get into a space and walk us through kind of like how you're a typical, I mean, I'm sure it's different every single time, but do people come with ideas? Do you like when people come with ideas? Do they usually have a track and then you top line it together? Are you part of the top lining a lot of the time? Do you like to be part of the top lining? How do you usually all of the above?
Yeah. I mean, generally how I like to do it is that if it's for my project, I'll like start ideas, track wise with the vibe and style and what I'm kind of shooting for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll bring that into a session. A rapper or a singer will come in and we'll work on that together. Not always, but sometimes they're like, oh, this this would be great with this past idea or this whatever idea I had, and then we'll kind of go from there. Um, but another thing that's really important is really getting the lyric sentiment with the music. I think that's really important and maybe overlooked a lot of times. Is like if you have like a hard like aggressive banger of a track and you have like kind of a non-tough lyric. Sure, it can work, but you're not hitting the wide range of things. Like you want to really hit that sentiment correctly. Um, I think yeah, it took me forever to really nail down. But yeah, there's different types of feels of tracks. You know, there's a quirky track. You don't want to have like a banger of a lyric in a quirky track. It's just like it'll turn a lot of people off, or turn people maybe who don't know music as well as, you know, us and songwriters know it. Because a lot of the people who are making decisions like music, know some music, but aren't writing music every day like we are. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to make it really clear and easy for them to hear it, ingest it, and be like, oh, I get the feeling of this right away.
Mm-hmm. Such a good point. They don't necessarily even know what they're looking for. They know they're like doing, oh, we're doing a fun ad. We're looking for fun music. Send us fun music. You're like, oh, but if the sound and the lyrics don't match, then when you send it to somebody who's just looking for like that feeling, it's such a really great distinction because you're sending it to people who are some cases corporate, like these corporate people who are wearing corporate hats saying like, does this test well, and this is like the colors of the brand, and we're looking for a feel. So if you can also speak to that in a really clear way, you are not just talking to other songwriters and music people,
Totally.
which
And
is,
oh yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, and on the other side of things, I mean, that um opposite sentiment lyric with music sentiment works really well in pop music too sometimes. Like that, it's like opposite almost. Like you want
Hmm.
to have some of that opposite sentiment. It's like a great tactic to use in pop, but just I don't think works in sync. Like it just is. I've tried it so many times and it's so hard. So yeah,
Yeah, they're not getting it. You're like, this doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, universal language of music. So they're speaking like what does it feel? And so you guys have the ability to tap into what's the feeling of the song, and is the feeling hitting both lyrically and sound-wise, soundscape. Yeah.
totally.
So, we have a lot of producers in here. What are some of the ways that you are such an accomplished producer, songwriter, musician? I mean, coming up as a musician, playing drums, how does that kind of cross over into your production? How are the ways that your insights for production that you
Yeah.
kind of your go-tos?
I think it's really important to make something that you really like. I mean, it's so hard to say what is good at a high level. Everything is generally really good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and people are doing really good work and making something cool. It's like when things really started working for me is not when I stop thinking about like what sync music, what's going to work for sync, but things that like using the tactics that work for sync, but making stuff that I was like, this is cool. Like I love this. I would like this to I would put this out. I think people would like it. Um, I think that's so important to make music that you really like. I like it sounds cliche and ridiculous because everyone says that, but like I did music. I like when I was first starting sync, I just was like, oh, this I think would work for sync. Like this would be cool. And it wasn't like I wasn't putting all my time, like energy and time into it. And I was like, oh, like half-assing it. Like I was like, I'm doing it. But I was also thinking like this might do that. Like, oh, I hear this over here. Like I'm gonna try that. But I wasn't like super stoked with the result a lot of times. And I think making things that you really like is super important.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the best piece of advice, really. Like you're the marker at the end of the day. Like, is it something you're going to press play again on? Is it something that sounds, because if you really like it, it's got that sense of authenticity. It's got that unique mark that's only you could put because it was something that you created that you really love. And we make music because we really love music. And when we take that heart out of it, you can hear it, you can feel
Yeah.
it no matter how much effort you put into it. And that's but you can't just make music you love, because you have to figure out how to like hone your craft enough to create what you really love. Like You know, I think we've all cut our teeth and made songs that are like, yeah, we worked we like the hardest we could, but you keep leveling up. And at some point you're just like, whoa, like I just surprised myself. Listen to this. This is so great. It's interesting. It kind of like comes out of the walls at me. And I think
Yeah.
you've been so, you know, that's like really what stands out about your music. Like it's not, you know, you've got a stamp that's like not everybody's making this. This doesn't sound, you know, like cookie cutter. This is super fun. I've, you know, you really bring originality to it while it not being like off the wall, you know,
Well,
what's
thank you.
happening.
Thank you so much. And also to add on to that is like once you start doing it for some years, is like by studying the things that work, you're also honing your taste. I think at
Mm-hmm.
a high level, you need to hone your taste because your taste, so at least my taste when I came out of the pop world, that taste didn't really translate to what worked in sync
Mm,
so much. So I had to like change what I liked over a period of time. This is like really nuanced stuff, but like,
it's good.
yeah, honing your taste is really important. Um, that yeah, it's really, really important.
I mean, I think that's like the underbelly because it's like, oh, well, you got to do the research. You got to listen. You got to check and see your music. You got to make sure you like it. But it's like, well, how? How do I do that? Because you're still making music and maybe it's still not hitting the marker. But then if you're like, oh, well, like, where's your taste marker? Like, what music are you listening to? Like, what are your ears gravitating towards? Like, that's just one layer deeper to really, because it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually do it. And so, you know, John, we're all listening to music all the time, and it's hard to hear in our own music how to like measure that, you know. We had a call earlier today and somebody was like, I don't know if my song is ready, like I don't know if it's hard to know. But if your taste is, you keep honing in on your taste and like your ears, I think it's such a good, really good, like deeper level of the onion so that you are changing the things on top, because it's harder to change those things if you keep reverting back to, well, I keep listening to the song from the 90s, but I'm really trying to make like 2029 bangers. And it's like, well, here's the discrepancy here.
Totally, totally.
Yeah, such a good point, because I feel like that's that's the conversation of like, okay, you want to make better music, you want to write better music, you're trying to follow all the tips, and it's still like not leveling up. And part of that is really like, what are you listening to? What are you honing in on? Who are you working with? And how do you get into the room with people who are maybe like a little bit more, who bring strength to the table that you don't bring to the table? Um, in that case, like how do you find your co-writers? Are you brought together by people you know, other people that know people, or people that represent you that put you in the room with other people?
Yeah, I think organically. I mean, I've been now writing, producing, I guess, professionally for like 12-ish years or 10, 12 years, or 12 years. That just the network. But in terms of sync, it's not a large network of people who are really doing it. I think
Mhm.
it's like there's kind of the top like 15 people who kind of do a lot of the ads. And I didn't reach out right away. It took me some years. I think also being honest with yourself of like where you're at in your ability to like make music that is right for this stuff is really important too. Like when I was coming up, like I was good at production. I was good at pop production. I was good at writing. I could understand a universal lyric. I could understand, edit points and stuff like I've composed before. But the first few years, I just kind of made music and learned while still being able to do some sync, but I was kind of doing lower level sync stuff, which made sense to me. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. I can get these in shows. I can send off to music libraries. They'll accept my music. That's great. Um, but I was also learning and I was also very honest and being like, okay, I see these people getting these ads. Like some of them are my friends. And I'm like, okay, what's working? Why is their stuff working? And as you study more and more, it gets more and more nuanced, and you kind of realize, okay, these are what these people are doing to like just really push it through to be the high level ad stuff. Um, and I'm trying to remember what my point was. I don't remember what my point
I
was.
think that was
I
your
got
point. Yeah,
sidetracked.
you're covered. I mean, I just want to
Oh
comment
yeah,
on
go
that
ahead.
because I think a lot of people, we have this private community where people are, it is a learning, applying, creating music, taking a brief, interpreting the brief, writing to the brief. And the way that you're talking about it is like, it takes time. It takes time. And
Yeah,
so people are like, well, where's my sync? I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. And you're like, I took my time. I studied. I got to this level. Then I noticed these people and I like got to that level. What are they doing? How are they doing that? How do I really push for that?
right.
And to not feel this like it should have happened yesterday and instead to feel like, all right, like I'm in it for the long haul and I'm here. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to be like the best that I can and no shortcuts because that I think at the end of the day, people are like, cool, how can we just like make this banger ad song and kind of skip over some of the intricacies of things. And when you can give yourself the permission to take the time to really put that foundation underneath you so that you are just like turning out awesome music all the time.
Totally.
I love that you brought that to the
Yeah, the
table.
blessing and curse to sync is that you can make a song when you first start a beginner and like get lucky and get it on a TV show. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone starts out in sync that way, maybe. They're like, oh, I made this thing and like I just kind of did it and it got on Selling Sunset. Oh my God, like this is easy. I could do this stuff all day. That happened to me, honestly. Like 15 years ago, I did this song accidentally. Not even just like I did this cover from a friend, me and I'm like singing on it and playing all these instruments and like it was kind of like a joke song. And like a month later, it became the theme song for American Pie, A Book of Love. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
like
cool.
we did this cover and it was like just happened to have lined up and they put it
Yeah.
in the movie and it's like the theme song of it. And I was like, this is the easiest thing ever. Like I'm gonna take over this world. I could just crush it. And like I proceeded to like work for like months making a bunch of songs, covers, all the things, and nothing got placed, of course, because it was trash. Um, and it just yeah, it like really takes time. I really think that if you have a good production background and writing background, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to get that skill set of like what works for sync because it's such a skill set. It's like not and you can get lucky along the way and I hope you
Yeah.
do. So it just
Yeah.
pulls you and gives you more confidence because you get one sync and you're like, okay, I'm getting it. What's working here? And then, you might not land for 40 more songs and then you land another one and you're like, whoa, I kind of I get it a little more. I'm like in each step you're just getting better, but you're like not going to jump. The big jump I think happened for me is when I was like 3 years in to making library music to making getting lucky on some things and here and there. And then I just hit up a few of the people who kind of do the best, who like get all the big syncs, some of the artists. And I just hit them up and I kind of leveraged my pop background. Lucky I had some hits and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll work with you because you've had some pop hits. I was like, thank God. And I learned so much from them. And then they also help me with their contacts. They have the best contacts in the world for ads. So from there, I just had to level up and just get better like pretty quickly, or else I was not going to be able to take advantage of this shot. Like I was getting,
Mm-hmm.
they're opening the door for me. And if I didn't walk through it, I just had to get better. So that's a really great way when you're ready and you're like, I'm killing it. I know what I'm doing now. I really feel like I'm there. Then hitting up the top 15 people who basically do all the ads and just being like, hey, do you want to do something? Can we make something? And like I know they're open to it. People are absolutely open to working. I certainly get hit up a lot and I like to talk with people and my friends who do really well in that world also love to just work with new people because you never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many things you just said. One, 3 to 5 years. I mean, to really hone, to really get better, to really, to come from pop, you think, or to be like a playing musician out touring, like you're shifting to showing up to being like a level, a game. This is what it takes. And it takes all of this in between. So I really love that. And when the door opens and you have that opportunity to show up for it, I think that's also like things fall out the window. People are like, oh, well, what do I do now? Like, that's really scary. Or like, well, they want me to write something, and people might run the opposite direction when that opportunity comes, because there's so much pressure to like level up. And you were like, I'm here for it. I'm ready. Let's go. I'm going to level up as fast as whatever I'm going to learn, and I'm going to show up for this, bring my A+ game, and then you just keep going. And I think it's such a good lesson for people to take those opportunities, be ready for those opportunities. Don't knock on those doors until you're ready, because they might not open it again later when you're ready. And to know everybody's always getting better. Like, agencies sometimes say, hey, we're not ready for we hear in our conferences, they say, we are advocates of artists. We understand you're always getting better. Send us your music. If it doesn't work, go back to the drawing board, make more, get better, and send new music. Like, it doesn't mean, you've reached this far as you can go, especially because just because you've been touring doesn't mean it translates to being kick-ass at sync all of a sudden. Like, there's big learning curves, which is, why we're in it day in and day out in this community. So I just appreciate so much the humanity that you bring to the process, that this is like really showing up for your craft, showing up for what you do, bringing it every single time, and knowing like people are accessible. You just have to be ready and really able to show up to be in those rooms. And when the time is ready, those rooms are there.
Totally. And it's, I think, important to note that, like, when you're reaching up, like, you're not the big dog. Like, you have to bring value to their life. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
value can you bring to the room for them to be like, cool, well, I work with all the biggest people. Why would I work with you? Like, what value are you bringing to them? I think that's how I looked at it. And that helped a lot, because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I can make I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it all fast. I'm gonna be the best. And just, for me, that worked. And finding whomever you reach out to, how can you make their life easier? If you can make their life easier and bring something to their life, they're gonna want to be around you and work with you. Like, that's just, I mean, in any business situation, but especially for songwriting, especially for people who have, millions of dollars and don't need you to work with you at all. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like such a, so sometimes it's overlooked, I think.
Indeed. I love that you clarified that and really spelled it out, because that at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's like, if you're going to work with they don't need to work with you unless you can make it, you bring something to the table in anything. Like you said, it's not just for like getting in the room with top people, but in any business thing, like even pitching your music to agencies, make it easy for them to say yes, so that they understand, like, this is the type of music I make. It's one stop. Like, give them, oh, I have like this many spins on Spotify. Like, just make it clear. Oh, cool, I can be in partnership with that person. That makes sense to me. Like, I can wrap my head around what they're bringing to the table, how it makes my job easier, and how there's something in it for me. And that was such a clear thing to bring to the table, and awesome that you had, pop cuts that you could leverage, and also like you had put in the work to be able to really um quickly work on the production side and hold that piece of, so great. It's awesome. I know you've come up a few times. People have talked about you and your music, and you really stand out in this on the scene. And it's really nice to sit down and talk with you and get to hear what's going on for you while you're showing up like this, and the hard work that you've done, and how you've put in the time, and how, yes, like, things align, but it's not luck. It's hard work, and it's paying attention to the right things, not just spinning your wheels, and
Right. Yeah, writing songs are great, and just getting in a room and writing a great song, that's lovely too. And I support that also.
hmm
I think sync is not, for me, at least the way I which I approach it, is a lot more focused. It's very, very focused. And as you go along, you'll learn how to focus that even more when you create, and also on the business side of things. That's why it also takes time. Um, I mean, yeah, it's just a really very niche and specific skill set that does take time.
yeah. I mean, it's inspiring to hear that. And Drop in the chat how you guys are feeling. Are you feeling inspired? Do you have anybody have one question for Stefan before we reach in the who has a question? How are you feeling? What are you guys thinking? Was this inspiring? Does it make you feel like what does it make you feel like doing? Writing, working hard?
Yeah, who has questions? Love to answer questions.
So hopeful, feeling inspired, awesome, inspiring, going to start studying. Yes. Honesty. Um, awesome. Very inspiring. I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy to have this conversation because I feel like it's one thing to talk about the top layer, but then, if you keep not hitting the mark, you have to dig a little deeper and see like what's the real foundation I need to put here? What's the work I really need to put in, and how do I get really laser focused if this is my goal? Question, add music, what are the trends now?
Mm. Well, they're
Good
different for
question.
different brands. There's generally like three different bags that I always think of add music for. There's like the retro soul stuff, kind of like jungle vibe. They're
Mm-hmm.
like the newest iteration of the retro soul thing that's working for ads.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the Sophie Tucker side of things, which is like I put, anything from like Skrillex to like Sophie Tucker and anything in between there as one bag, kind of like new, fresh, dancey EDM stuff. Um, then there's like the swag rap, like rock, like stomp clap stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That is not as popular as it was 5 to 8 years ago. And then there's also the folk acoustic stuff that still works for like, Cheerios and diapers and that's whole world of stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, those are the how I kind of think of the generally of like the evergreen sound of what ads are. And they like change. There's like nuance in those different genres and those different feels. But if you make something with those types of sounds for those four different buckets, like you'll be close to it. But you have to really study which artists are working for it. And also, you can look at pop music too. I think pop music helps and helps inform a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the where kind of the modern ads are, like ads like companies like Genesis or Royal Caribbean. They like to use pop music, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of brands that use and want to be cool, I guess, quote unquote. So they'll 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 see what is trending in pop music, and it's like 6 months later, it's kind of like, oh, this is whatever was working in pop music. 6 months later, the it hits the ad world, and like, oh, we like this, and those you'll start seeing briefs for this. So like right now, we're seeing lots of briefs for jungle. Of course, we want something jungle inspired. Of course, you do, um, because that was very, very popular 6 months ago. So
Great insight there. Awesome. Wait, it's like you talk about that every single day or something. Like
yeah,
you're just like, oh, let me tell you really quickly.
I mean, I
Um,
think about it a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it shows. It shows. What DAW do you work in?
I use Cubase.
Cool. Um, what's the possibility of instrumental getting placed versus song with vocals?
So yeah, for ads, if we're talking about,
Yep.
honestly, most ads want to hear a full song and then they want to take the vocal off or they want to use just the chorus. So the vocals got to sell the song and the instrumental's got to be enough to where it can feel like a full production without the vocal. That's like some real secret stuff. Yeah, they always vocals sell it, then they strip it, and but if it doesn't sound full enough by itself, it's not going to work.
Great answer. Let's see, I think you answered that. How many projects do you typically juggle at once per day, per week, per month?
Well, I mostly just do my project, probably 70% of the time. So, I mean, I have like a backlog of like 35 songs I'm still producing. Like I'm like literally do 4 sessions a week, and then I just, yeah, some of them I'm not done with and I don't finish in a day, so I have to like go back and do them. But I also produce pop records still. I still work with a lot of artists that I really like. Um, so that also takes time. That generally takes more time than I would
Mm.
like it to. Um, but if we're talking like composition to picture, I'll do maybe one a week. Sometimes, nah, maybe not. Maybe one every 2 weeks. I'll get hit to do one, and I'll like, compose a song to picture. But if we're talking all things together, like I'm doing a lot of projects at once, like definitely more than 20. It's a lot.
Wow. Well, thanks for joining us today. I know it's like pausing the busy life for a minute to chat. Oh, okay. Last question. Do you have particular structure in your song lyric writing, 4 lines per chorus, etc.?
Not really. So I'll give you a great tip that Colby O'Donis gave me. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like one of the sync killers, and also just a great pop artist and awesome human. Um, his favorite thing to do, I feel okay. He didn't tell me not to say it, but I'll say it anyway. His favorite thing to do is to make songs that have the least amount of lyrics possible, but still feel like a full song. So
Mm,
like he would be writing these songs that are like 16 words and they feel amazing. And he like stretches them. Like his favorite thing is to make a 1 word chorus and just stretch it and make it work. Um,
mm,
in the best. And it's like such a cool idea, and his songs are awesome. And really, if you think about it, it relies a lot more on production. So, and it's crazy because he's such a great singer. He's an amazing like singer, gospel singer, sings, but he's like the less words, the better. The easier it is for people to understand, and it makes you stretch your melody and it makes you stretch your production because sync production is way more full and way more melodic than is, say, a pop production. You got to have a lot more stuff going on music wise.
mm. That's, I love that insight. That's great. Thinking about how few words, how can you cut it down? We often say more space, but that's like less words, even better, more to the point.
Less words. Yeah, lots of space. Exactly.
All right, we are at the 1 o'clock hour. I want to respect your time. I want to share with everybody, if you're not in Sync Society, our private sync community, and you are feeling like, oh, you guys have talked about it a lot. We bring in people every week for our calls. We bring in a producer, we bring in a music licensing agency, and we bring in a music supervisor every month. And you guys get 6 briefs to write to. At the end of the month, the songs are due. So everybody in Sync Society, if you're in Sync Society, drop it in the chat. Your songs are due on Sunday, and the top songs are selected for our sampler. I pitched them to about 15 different sync agencies, and most of our sampler every month gets signed to licensing agencies. So it's a really great way to stay in what's happening, who's doing what, who are the players, how do I get my song signed, how do I keep cultivating the work? How do I keep honing my ear, honing my craft? And how do I surround myself with other people in this world that are doing that and get in the room with people who are getting those licenses? So if you do have questions and you feel like, I don't know, maybe this might be right for me, you can book a little 10-minute one-on-one with me for a second. We can have a quick chat. I just dropped the link in the chat. Book that if you feel like, I don't know, or you can just go to 2indie.com/sync society and see if you want to join us for next month, where we're bringing in an advertising supervisor. Our agency of the month is A&G Sync out of the UK. And yeah, we've got some great things happening. I love these monthly community calls. Thank you for joining us. To the new people who have not been on a call with us before, welcome to our community. Let us know if you have questions. And thank you so much for being here today and sharing your insights, your experience, your just awesome energy and expertise. It's really fun sitting down and talking with you and seeing your face.
Well, thank you. It was that was great. I had a great time.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen you since I was pregnant with my first kiddo and sitting in your studio many years ago,
Oh
whenever
my
that was,
gosh.
6 years ago. Yeah, it's been a
Wow.
while. Well, it's nice to see you.
Great to see
And
you.
see you guys all Tuesday. Most of you, some of you. All right, my friends, have a great day.
Bye, guys.